We have a major update on the Knicks trade plans. According to Fred Katz of The Athletic, he states that the Knicks are still looking to trade for a center, and he reports that they're going to do this regardless of if Mitchell Robinson is healthy or not. We're going to break down all of these latest reports and so much more today. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now. And make sure you have notifications turned on so you don't miss a second of the new content. And now, let's get started. Major updates on the Knicks trade plans. As we all know, we've been speaking about it for weeks now. The Knicks are likely going to make a trade at the deadline for another center. Either a backup center or a starting center, depending on who's available and what that trade package is going to look like. We've thrown out a lot of names over the last few weeks. And now, thanks to Fred Katz, we have a few more names that we can review. Let's go through the latest report from Fred Katz regarding the Knicks and potential centers that they can look at the deadline. Shout out to Fred Katz for giving us the following updates about the Knicks and potentially some names they could look at the trade deadline. Now, as you see here, in his latest article, while he's not stating exactly that the Knicks are going to go after each and every single one of these players, it is interesting that as an NBA insider, a Knicks insider, he is linking the Knicks to a number of names that they have been linked to over the past few weeks. Let's go through them really quickly. According to Katz, he says, would the Knicks search for another starting caliber center on the trade market? Do they call the Utah Jazz about Walker Kessler? I do think the Knicks called the Jazz for Walker Kessler at the trade deadline, just because I already know that the Knicks have interest in Kessler and they've wanted him on this roster for a while now. So that interest hasn't gone away. Hopefully, though, they can make a trade package work with Ainge to get that deal done. But there's your obstacle, Danny Ainge. And unless he approves any deal going out, the Knicks are not going to get Walker Kessler. So for me right now, the Knicks have to focus on other names because I don't think they have the trade package to get a Kessler deal done because Ainge is going to want a lot. And the Knicks do not have a lot, at least at this point in time, to give up to Utah. Katz continues here and he mentions, would they go after Portland Trailblazers center Robert Williams III, a dominant defender who is an underrated passer, but who also has an injury history? It's really funny to see Robert Williams III on Fred Katz's list there because a few weeks ago, an NBA executive said the Knicks and Robert Williams III could be a perfect match. The only problem with that is his injury history. He's basically like having another Mitch. Now, he does have a little bit more offense than Mitch gives you, but at what cost? What is the package going to look like for Robert Williams III? And is it going to be worth it for the Knicks to do that? Because if they get him, if he stays healthy, yes, he can be a force. But if he doesn't, if he goes down with injury, and then you have Mitchell Robinson still there, and then he goes down with injury, what are you going to do as a Knicks organization? Because potentially the only center you're going to have left is Jericho Sims. And if that's the only center you have left, we have major problems to worry about. That's why for me, I'd rather not go after somebody like Robert Williams III unless the package was an absolute steal. Because if you go after him and you get him on this team, his health is going to be the number one factor. And if he doesn't stay healthy, and if you look at his injury history, it is very similar to Mitchell Robinson. Although he's a little bit younger, it's still similar. And that is still concerning to me. If you trade for him, you give up assets for him, and then you get him on this roster, and then he goes down with an injury, then why did you make the deal in the first place? Remember, the Knicks are trying to find solutions, not cause more problems. If you get another injury-prone player on this team, what does that do? Potentially create another problem. Thanks, but no thanks for me when it comes to Robert Williams III. But if you guys don't agree, let me know in the comments below. But let's continue here. Would they prefer a smaller name, someone who wouldn't cost a couple of first-round picks they have remaining? Could they target Nick Richards or another more modest big man who could become available this winter? Now, that's something more realistic for me. If the Knicks targeted somebody like Nick Richards, I can see a trade like that happening. Although, it would have to be up to the Hornets and how that team looks like at the deadline. If they're already tanking and it doesn't matter, then yeah, maybe you can trade for Nick Richards. However, if you look at their roster top to bottom, look at their center position. If they lose one of those centers, either Nick Richards or Mark Williams, it's over for their entire season. It's over for their hopes and their dreams. Do the Hornets really want to do that? Do they want to make that type of commitment to make that type of trade? And then if something happens, who knows what goes on with their season? That's why I'm saying that trade only makes sense if the Hornets are already spiraling at that point in time and tanking. Because if they have nothing to lose and they rather gain more assets in a losing season, then maybe they can go ahead and trade a Nick Richards. And at that point, the Knicks would likely get him on the roster because the trade would make sense. Because I don't think he would cost you a lot to get him on this team. However, a lot of things have to align in order for that type of trade to happen. I don't want to put all of my eggs in that basket. I'd rather the Knicks go out and look at a number of different centers, see what they cost, and then based off of that, trade for that player, get him on this team, and hopefully that player has an impact and makes us better moving forward into the season, because that's what we're going to need. Here's the very interesting part from Fred Katz, though. He reported, even if Robinson stays healthy, the Knicks could make an in-season move for a center. Signing Achua for $6 million allows them to flip him for someone who makes up to that salary. They could pair him with another player to bring back more money too. Katz continues here by stating, the Knicks still have the Detroit Pistons 2025 first-round pick, which is heavily protected, and the Washington Wizards 2025 first-rounder, which is also so protected that it's more likely to convey as 2 second-rounders in a couple of years down the line. They can swap first-rounders with another team in 2026 and 2030 as well, too. The trade market isn't the only place the Knicks could find a worthwhile backup, though. If they waited long enough, they could scour the market for buyout candidates in February or March. They are yet to use the taxpayer mid-level exception. If they hold on to that, they could pay any free agent up to $5 million to join them. The most interesting thing that Fred Katz just reported was the fact that regardless of Mitchell Robinson's health, the Knicks are likely going to make a trade. And he pointed to the Achua signing for the reason they're going to make that trade. Achua, 1 year, $6 million deal. He waived his no trade clause. All of those factors are pointing to the Knicks making a trade at the deadline. However, it all depends on who's available and who they're going to need at the deadline. And as Fred Katz mentioned, the Knicks don't only need to trade to make the upgrade at center. They could look at the buyout market to also find upgrades as well, too. That could also explain why the Knicks haven't utilized their MLE yet. They might be waiting to see what players become available on the buyout market and then utilize the MLE at that point in time to get another impactful player on this team that makes us better as we move forward into the postseason, because that's going to be the ultimate goal. Making this Knicks team as good as possible so we can be as healthy as possible headed into the postseason, because we have goals to get to the Eastern Conference Finals and beyond that. Remember, our window to win a championship starts now. But just because you have a window doesn't mean you stop making moves. Instead, it actually means you have to make moves that matter even more. And sometimes the smallest moves, the moves that you might think don't really matter, like a backup center, for instance, that's not going to make or break our team, right? Wrong. For our team, the way we play, with the injuries that we know potentially could happen, we need to plan for that. And planning for that means you have to have a backup. You have to have insurance. And that's why, in my opinion, the Knicks are going to make a move to get another body at the center position on this team, regardless of if Mitchell Robinson stays healthy or not, because they know anything can happen in the NBA, and you have to be prepared for that. Whether it's going to be via trade or on the buyout market, the Knicks are going to make moves, and they're going to upgrade this roster. And that is absolutely clear after this report from Fred Katz. And I think the Knicks are going to do it in both ways. They're going to make a trade, absolutely, because you don't sign Achua to that type of deal, to that type of contract, if you don't have plans in the future to trade him. So I know the Knicks are going to make some type of trade at the deadline. But with the MLE available, they can look at the buyout market and make an addition there too. And that's why I think they're going to do both, because they have reason to do both. We still have some time to go until training camp. They could still use the MLE before camp, get another player on this team, and fill in that final roster spot. Or they can choose not to. But depending on what they do, that's going to tell us a lot in terms of what they're going to do at the trade deadline. That's why the Knicks are going to have to be creative in any player they target and try to get on this roster, because they're going to have to fit the chemistry, they're going to have to fit the culture, and they're going to have to understand their role when they're out there. As long as all of those boxes are checked, I don't mind whoever the Knicks go after. I trust in Leon Rose in this Knicks front office, even though they haven't had the perfect offseason, because I still feel dropping the ball with Isaiah Hartenstein and not being able to get us a legitimate 5, a legitimate backup behind Mitchell Robinson, that wasn't a great move. However, everything else they did, it's hard to criticize it because it was so good, so impactful, the moves that we needed. So it's hard to criticize that. That's why, for me, I trust in Leon Rose in this Knicks front office, and I believe in them. I know they're going to get the job done. They're going to make this team better, and they're going to ensure that when we go into the postseason, we are going to be able to be healthy and run through any team that we face, because finally we have the roster to do it on both sides of the court. Offensively and defensively, the Knicks are going to be a nightmare for any team they face headed into next season. But what about you guys? What do you think about these latest reports indicating that even if Mitchell Robinson stays healthy, the Knicks could still make an in-season move to add another center to this roster? Let me know in the comments below, guys, because honestly, I would love to hear from you. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment below. And of course, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knicks fans. Peace.